finally decided to take the plunge and play some rapid chess games on stream. I had the idea to make this YouTube series where I would play 15-minute, 10-second increment games, and obviously I wouldn't just stick to one opening. So I would take opening suggestions from the chat and ultimately try to play all the major openings, give some thorough explanations, go into some analysis after the game, and hopefully turn it into a learning experience, something educational for you guys. So I hope that you find your favorite opening in this series. If you have suggestions for which opening to play, you can drop it in the comment below. But this is a series that I hope will be really helpful for you guys, and I hope that you enjoy. It is going to be a little bit longer in terms of the length of the video, but that's obviously by design since I'm including the long rapid game and all my thoughts afterwards in the analysis. So hope you learned something, guys. Queen a5 check. We call that an intermezzo. We also might be referring to this move as a blunder pretty soon, but we're gonna go with intermezzo for now. Hitting the queen and hitting that square. My opponent has not developed a single piece. The only piece they've developed has been the knight, and they lost it. And they're just moving their queen around. Right? The minor pieces all hit the queen, and I'm gaining tempo every single move, gaining time. My opponent's moving the queen, but you can't win the game with just one piece. Right? This is why you don't develop your queen early, why you need to control the center on the first move of the game with some move. All right, we got the white pieces. What should we do? What's our first move? I probably have some time to think. We can base it off our opponent's moves. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of c4. All right. We'll go English to start off here. Well, maybe, well, yeah, depends what they do. We'll start with c4. Symmetrical English. Okay. Usually when I see symmetrical English, my feeling already is that I kind of want to go for a like a Maroczy bind position. I just think Maroczy bind is very, very strong. Almost anytime I see the symmetrical, that's pretty much my first instinct. So I'm gonna go knight f3, and I'm pretty much intending just d4 here. d4 and knight d4. The Maroczy is like, maybe you guys have seen this structure before, but it's with like e4, c4, and sometimes a pawn chain like this, like that, and then your knight sits on d4. So I'm gonna go d4 and take it back like this. Okay, knight f6. Now the thing about knight f6, as opposed to just taking, is it allows me to make a new decision here. For example, I could play knight c3 and I could just transpose, right? Takes, and then I get e4, and it maybe will look like a Maroczy. But in this position, I just don't see any reason why I wouldn't want to play d5 and hit the knight, right? The knight has no e5 square and no d4 square. So d5 already looks like a good move to me. This now basically looks like a Benoni or a Benko, except I'm actually gaining time hitting the knight. Usually this knight's on b8, and this position with a knight here and black to move would actually be a normal position. So the fact that he might put his knight on b8 and it's my turn is already a very good sign. Queen a5 check. We call that an intermezzo. We also might be referring to this move as a blunder pretty soon, but we're gonna go with intermezzo for now. He can still make this work. This isn't a bad sign just yet. But we're clearly in check here. We need to deal with it. Bishop d2 is the most natural move because it hits the queen. So bishop d2, What's the main line we're going to be calculating, right? Bishop d2. If the queen goes wherever, I mean, we're just going to take the knight, right? It's not even... You can end your calculation there. Like, if you calculate bishop d2, you don't have to calculate queen here, queen here, queen here, queen here, like 50 queen moves. It's like, no. You're going to win the knight. So, all of them are bad. So knight b4 is what I would expect. Right? That move saves the queen and saves the knight. And if I then played the move pawn a3, it's kind of worth noting there that I'm not actually threatening to take the knight because I'm pinned to my own rook on a1. So while bishop d2 looks great with a3, it's just important to remember after a3, I'm not threatening to take it. So my rook is hanging. So that's just something I'll keep in mind. I'm going to start with bishop d2. I mean, looks like a great move, of course. And he might not play knight b4, so I mean, we'll see. But that's the best move. Now, something that I'm thinking is if I play a3, my opponent can play knight e4. If I take this, right? If I take on b4, then a1 hangs. If I play like, I don't know, knight c3, well, that needs calculation, right? Knight takes d2. If I play a takes b4, knight takes f3 is check. So knight takes d2 if I just take on d2 back, then black saves the knight, and I actually haven't won anything. I haven't won any material there. Right? So to me, a3 knight e4 is quite a good reaction. And I'm not fully convinced after that. It definitely is playable, but it needs a lot more than just that. That's not winning on its own. The other way to play here is to say, okay, congratulations, you played knight b4. I might not win something outright, but I'm just gonna go knight c3. And who the hell cares, right? I'll just play e4, take the center, and I'll kick your knight out myself. So, I mean, I think you can always go hunting for this knight, but to me, I see a move like knight e4, and that's like a lot of calculation. I just think it's nice and simple, nice and easy to play knight c3, e4, e5, kick the knight out myself. As soon as the knight moves, there's going to be a discovered attack on the queen. It's like, I'm not trying to stress here. Nice and easy. Okay, e6. I think e4 is almost a requirement here. I like getting the pawn up. Again, I can always kick the knight when I need to. Knight d3, important to know, is covered by my bishop, so he doesn't have that available. Is this a speed run? No, it's just a series. Just to see. I don't like the word speed run, you know? It's just a chance for me to play some longer games and go through the variations, talk a bit slower. So for example, because we've waited here, I think a3 and knight b5 may indeed just win material. So we'll start with a3. Notice our queen is protecting, so that is a real threat. I just think when your opponent's doing weird things like queen a5, knight b4, like knight c6, knight b4, you know it's a little bit odd. Yeah, there's sometimes a way to punish it immediately, but if you don't see a3 winning a piece straight away because of the pin, I think at some point it's smarter to just play a normal developing move, knight c3, and just get things going. If your opponent's playing weird moves and you just play your normal developing moves, you'll just have a better position. That's how it works. If you try to also play weird moves to take advantage of what they're doing, you're either going to be immediately successful and win material, or you're going to miscalculate something, or it's not going to be as clear as you wanted it to, and you playing weird moves yourself to try to like win a piece or something is gonna totally backfire. So I think we made the right choice here. Now here comes our knight b5 move, discovered attack on the queen, and a4 is covered as well. Knight b4 back, we can just take with the pawn now. So I think his queen is stuck, and our knight's also on a good square. I mean, it can't go to c7 right now, but in the future it will. But his real bad move was b6, right? Because in this position, if his pawn was back, he could just play queen d8. It wouldn't be so bad. It would be worse for black, but not the end of the world. You don't know what moves are weird? I think you do, Tian Khan. You know, for example, developing a queen on move 4 in most openings and in chess in general, that's weird. Moving a knight twice, you know, on move whatever it was, 5 in a game is usually weird. Especially now 3 times before move 10. That's weird. And both of these pieces being on the side of the board, I think we can appreciate that those things are unusual. So here, we'll make sure to take this way. And again, all he's done now is give up a knight on top of losing his queen, and knight c7 is now a real threat. So we'll make sure to take this queen here. And we have knight c7 to win the rook afterwards. All right, he's not even going to take our rook. Generous guy. Trying to decide whether we should save our rook or take his rook. And I think I'm gonna go for taking his rook, but I'm actually not sure about this. But I'm gonna go for this. The other option was rook takes pawn, but the thing that I like about knight c7 is it does force the king to move, so I think that's kind of what sold me. Here. And then king d8. Maybe a little hasty. At this point, almost anything will win. That much is true, but still need to calculate here. Bishop b4, bishop there, bishop g7. Remember, we still have a rook hanging as well. So I would say probably just keep it simple and take here. He's done the right thing. Taking on a5. Now what's the move he doesn't want to see here? I'm just gonna go here. Start taking all these pawns afterwards. Like once this pawn falls, I think everything kind of falls apart. And yes, that is absolutely the case, guys. If you are up a lot of material, trades will be good. Extremely good. Bishop takes looks great. Queen e5 though, I think I'm very partial towards. This is a nice check. It also forces him to go there. And after this, I really have a choice. I can take the knight, but I can also give a check here. And I'm probably going to give a check at least to start. Because if he goes here, I'll take that with check. If he goes here, I have the option to at least repeat. So I'm just giving my opponent a chance to make another mistake. But at this point, I think we more or less earned our victory, starting with c4. Great suggestion. Let's go bishop takes b4. Nice thing about king e6 is it walks into that, mate. Nice thing about king e8 is it walks into that, mate. d6 is impossible. Knight d6 will walk into everything at once. And king f6 is probably the last move that, at least it survives a few more moves. But ultimately will lead to mate as well. Yeah, there's a few checks here. I think we'll go with this one. It's in the center. It forces the action. Now the true test. You know, what is the fastest checkmate? Anyone have any clues? Unlike mate in one, look for better. When we're playing slower chess, we are looking the absolute best way to mate. The quickest one. How can we get a mate going on here? I'm looking. I mean, I really feel like taking the knight might be the quickest path. For those that are suggesting this, remember your backwards knight moves. I was thinking about g4, but then I was like, wait a minute, what about d6? You know, I have this check, but the king goes the other way. So it's actually g4, knight h4, and then mate. That's what I think it is. The other thing is queen takes here. Seems to be a mate in 3. f5, queen e8. And I guess it might be a mate in 4. So I'm liking the move g4. I'm really feeling it. Both of these moves get mated in 1. I'm a g4 fan. I'm a g4 fan. You guys have convinced me. There's absolutely nothing wrong with g4, right? 0 things wrong. Absolutely nothing wrong. This is what I'm saying, guys. Guys. First game of the series, you're leading me astray like this. I mean, this is why we can't trust the chat. This is why we can't trust the chat. This is a 392 who's just taken the absolute best move in the position and is looking to now go on the offensive. Thanks, chat. All right, all right. King has to move here. Which one are we gonna go for? I think we might actually get a checkmate quicker by blundering more material so that we just get mate. This is classic. This is classic. You guys can't be trusted, clearly. Okay. Well, I think moving my king this way, although it feels a little bit better, so it's not pinning, is not as... Yeah, this is the... You gotta attack the knight, take the rook, and take our mate quickly before we lose this game. Good lord. GG. It's a close call. You guys can't be trusted to beat a 392. That's certainly interesting, huh? That's certainly interesting. What happened in this game? We played the English. Let's look at our game review. 91.7, and we all know why that is. It would have been like 100% if you guys didn't blunder at the end. You see that miss right there? It's probably you guys. Okay, we like this. D5 is good. Yeah, queen a5. This is like, you know, a little bit too fancy, I think. A little bit unnecessary. We went for bishop d2 here, and then we played knight c3. a3, I just wasn't entirely sure. This is the stuff we were calculating. a3, and then I was saying, you know, knight e4. And knight e4 to me was not clear enough. For example, one of the best lines according to the engine is knight c3. But we calculated this. Knight d2, we have to take it back, right? Because otherwise knight takes c3 check. Okay, we take it back. I mean, taking with the knight is already counterintuitive. And then black plays this, and I don't think it's that bad, honestly. Right? The engine is giving some nonsense like d6 is the top move, and then the second top move is h4. Hello? Like, what is this? Is not even chess. What? What? And I don't even have my dark square bishop here, so I hate this line. This doesn't make any sense to me. So that's why I didn't like a3. I much preferred knight c3. So I think in the long run, knight c3 is probably just a smarter decision. He's doing the weird stuff over here. Let him do that. Just focus on good normal stuff here. e4, there we go. And now we know that we want to play a3 next, get the knight in, and unfortunately for him, b6 was a serious mistake. And everything here was a little bit forced. After we forced the knight back, the knight got into b5. He brought the knight back to b4, but it's not really any use here. So he was in a rough spot. g4 is best. King e2 is a miss? Wait a minute. What? You're telling me the chat was right and I had to miss? What the hell? Hey. g4 top move. Oh no, I'm done. Oh, I'm done. No, I'm out of here. Top move? In what world? You've got to be joking me. Top move. This is a joke. Top move. g4 is best. Bishop b4 check. Knight here. Okay. Let me explain something to you. Let me explain something to you guys. All right. If I played king c2, the best move, right? The opponent wouldn't feel that their knight was attacked and wouldn't take the rook necessarily. They might, but they might not. And it's gonna take me some time to deliver a checkmate here, right? If black defends g5 in any way, if they play f5, right? h5, whatever it is, right? This is gonna take me 2 moves to mate. But, ooh, on planet Earth is playing rook e8 here. This guy just forked me. Of course he's gonna take the rook. So we actually checkmate faster. Thank you very much for coming to my TED Talk about coping. Now, what I was actually expecting, I was expecting pawn takes. And in case you guys were curious, this is the line I was gonna go for. I was gonna take, and you know, it's very common for people to like maybe play a accelerated dragon type of setup. Like this, knight c3. Like that. That's what I was gonna go for. All right, I'm gonna play d4. We haven't played d4 yet. Let's see what he plays and maybe what we wanna do next. Start with a d pawn for a change. Well, I think after a move like knight c6, we're already in a situation where we can handle this on a very individual basis, right? Of course, we can continue with other moves. Knight f3, e4, c4, but definitely the most direct way that I would recommend handling this, like by far, is just d5. Like, let's call a spade a spade. You're gonna bring a knight out and no center pawn? Look, I'll take a little bit of space. I don't mind. I mean, the knight should go there. But yeah, if people don't take the center of the board against you at all, like if they're not moving pawns, it might be wise to keep pushing. I mean, it's very well known that, you know, e4, knight f6, you keep pushing that thing. d4, knight c6, keep pushing that thing. I mean, this is already like put him out here. He's never seen this type of refutation before. He's really never seen it. All right, knight to b4. Now, I know you guys might all be laughing at these moves, but I really want to take a moment and actually acknowledge what's happening here. I think this happens more than people think, and I think that it gets mishandled more than people think. People like run their knights around the board and waste like 50,000 moves all the time. But not every single move that you make is going to be a good move in these cases, right? There are going to be better moves. So, for example, these two moves hit the knight, but I would definitely say that my favorite first move to start with would for sure be e4, for sure. Now, I'm going to have these two moves available next turn anyway. They're always going to be available to hit the knight. And there's no move that black can do that's going to assist this knight. It's always going to have to go back here. So I actually don't have to rush to kick it out. I don't. e4 just takes the center, protects my center pawn, opens up my pieces. I mean, now everything, the world is my oyster. I can decide where to put my pieces. Yes, I have a3, but I'm waiting for it. Remember, if the knight goes back, then all of a sudden it can jump in here. I'm not sure I want to see it on c5 right away. So I'd rather delay kicking it as long as possible. I can always boot that knight. No need to rush it. I had another game, I think it was the very first game in this series, where there was a knight on b4, and I actually delayed kicking it with a3, understanding that the knight only had this square available. That's just how it works. So we've already had this type of pattern. c6. Okay, again I see c6 and I'm like, look, if I take it, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like helping the knight. If it takes me, I don't see any issues there. So c6 is a good looking move, but also not, to me, not really like threatening that much. I still think this knight is gonna need to go there and there eventually. So I have a few options. The first option is probably pawn here. If the knight goes there, well, you might be like, bishop takes a6, buddy. a3, bishop takes a6. Pawn takes a6, pawn takes, queen takes. Woo! But after bishop takes a6, queen a5 is a very, I don't want to call it a trap because it doesn't win material, but it's a very nice move to check the king and take back with the queen. And I think I would actually just not even have a good position if I did that. So I'm not too interested. I have to admit, I'm not too interested. What I am probably going to do, and I'm interested in, is I'm just going to play c4. You want to take me? I'm going to take back. I'm going to bring my knight out. And again, I'm ready to kick this knight whenever, but I'm not in a particular rush. Like, I don't think this knight's doing anything. So I'm going to play c4. Bring my knight out. Again, queen a5, like my opponent is going kind of all in, like as if this is the be all and end all. I've seen this exact same thing in the very first game we played. How did we react to this? I mean, the same way, right? Bishop d2. Bishop d2. Now he's stuck. What does he do now? I'm gonna try to get out of this. So we've got a pin here, and a3 next is definitely going to be an impressive move. Hits the knight, but remember, we can't take with the pawn because our rook is hanging. But a3 does threaten to play bishop takes knight. Okay, takes. We have options here. I can play a3 and totally ignore that move, right? That makes basically a winning threat. Or we could take this pawn back in either direction, and I imagine our opponent is still going to have some issues with this, but in my opinion, why not start with the move a3? Obviously, I don't care about these pawns. I'm about to win material, so we're going to start with a3, which threatens bishop takes knight. Not pawn takes, but bishop takes knight. Queen c5, indeed. Queen c5 on the previous turn would have absolutely been necessary by my opponent, But you see how I've actually caused my opponent way more issues by leaving the knight there, rather than just kicking it away right away. It's like, yes, kicking it away, I gain some time, but you notice how the knight, in my opinion, is actually not that well placed on b4. So I'm not eager to boot it back to simply a better square. On c5, I think the knight stands pretty well. I'm not that interested in seeing it improve that quickly, so. Leave your opponent's knight there. Who knows what they're gonna concoct. You can always kick the knight out later with a3, so basically there's no need to rush it. So he may try to push this pawn, because then the bishop defends the knight. That would be a serious bit of understanding, actually. I don't see what the heck just happened. All right, we saw queen e5 get played. It's technically a double attack here, and if we play knight c3, then we cover both of them, but I'm a little concerned that I'm gonna drop my bishop there. Right? That doesn't look right. So, I think what we're gonna do, you know what I'd love to do? I'd love to get him to take here and then try to trap his queen somehow. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to do that. We still have a game here, yeah? Don't forget. We still have a game here. But I think it may just be knight f3. You know, take which one you want. If you want to take here, I'm just gonna go bishop e2 and castle. I'm up a full piece. Let's just get pieces out. If you're moving your queen around 50,000 times, I don't care. I don't care. I'm gonna play with a little more pizzazz, right? I'm up a piece. I don't truly care about another pawn in the middle here. I just want to get castled. I'm looking to get my pieces out as fast as possible. And actually, if he takes this, it's probably gonna work out for me because I have knight c3 coming, knight d5, knight c7. I think we can get a really quick attack. Okay, does not want to take that pawn or that pawn. Look at that. He wasn't having any part of it. e5 comes to mind. Bishop c4. Yeah, bishop c4 or e5. Again, the queen is still moving a bunch. Knight c3, knight d5 also looks a bit tempting. Let's see here. How do we want to play this? I think if I play knight c3, you know, e6 probably has to be played. And then we get to take this. Objectively, knight c3 is just a simple and great move. And Taz, oh, thank you kindly, buddy. Yeah, this will probably make it on YouTube. Like I just said, not every game, but the ones I think are instructive. And yeah, the whole point is we're taking our time here, talking through the moves. I'm dealing with someone who's basically only moving their queen right now. So I'm hoping that we're all gonna be able to handle this type of a player. I do not usually play slower games, so it is a rare sight indeed. Knight d5, guess what? Hitting the queen and hitting that square. My opponent has not developed a single piece. The only piece they've developed has been the knight, and they lost it. And they're just moving their queen around. This is a good reminder, right? This is why you don't develop your queen early. Why you need to control the center on the first move of the game with some move. Knight c6 is just not good enough. Very tough position for him. Queen e6 to hit this pawn, even more pain. Queen g6, right? Not a bad idea there, at least making a threat. So yeah, whether or not he finds a good move here, it's already the case that it's just a reminder to those lower rated, you just can't play with one piece, especially the queen. I've done the opposite. I have not moved my queen, and I'm pretty much using all my minor pieces, and I'm able to basically push my opponent around here. Right, the minor pieces all hit the queen, and I'm gaining tempo every single move, gaining time. My opponent's moving the queen, but you can't win the game with just one piece. Queen takes b2 is absolutely another suggestion. The thing about queen takes b2 is that there's no return squares along this diagonal. So once the queen is in there, I don't think it's getting back out. Queen takes b2, rook b1. Where does the queen go? There's only a2. And then a move like knight c3 would actually trap and win the queen. So queen g6. And you know what? I actually think this is probably the best move. So credit to my opponent for dodging a lot of potential blunders. I think queen g6 is basically the best move. So that's a good move. Yeah, knight c7, hard to refuse a move like that. After knight c7, he still has an opportunity to really make a mistake. So we'll see if he does. King d7 would be a little inferior to king d8. King d7, knight e5 would then win the queen. So he did well once again to dodge that. So the funny thing about this position is if he takes my pawn, which he's poised to do, it would be the exact same thing, and he just did it, as right here. So instead of taking the pawn here, he basically wanted to allow my knight to get to a8, lose a rook, move his king, and move one pawn. It's like, okay, I'll take that trade, right? Bishop e2, we're ready to castle now. Still following the fundamentals here. I'm winning material, so of course I'm on a bit of a side quest here. But for the most part, still staying true to the basic principles. What if I had played e5? Well, of course I could play e5 and knight c7 mate, but e5 is also a little bit of hope chess, right? e5 is hoping for pawn takes. That's a move I would play if I wasn't on the SlowBrah account. But we're not building those bad habits here. That's for that KNVB guy. I'm a changed man. All right? We play good chess over here. We don't look for better. We look for the best. Okay, bishop to d7. So the queen's in the middle. He finally develops a piece, which is actually quite genuinely a good sign. Castling comes to mind. Lots of other things to consider here, but castling really stands out. Rook c1, but I just think once we're castled, then we can get frisky and think about the next thing to do. Castling is just such a good habit. Get the king out of the middle, maybe rook e1, and then moves like knight g5 come to mind here. Okay, definitely looking at rook c1, a little basic threat here. b5. Probably bishop a5 check to save this knight. Tough spot for my opponent here. I'm just making moves that appear to do things with tempo. That's a great way to live your life as a chess player. Rook e1, likely a tempo on the queen soon. Rook c1, threatening something and developing. Notice how my queen has not moved yet, right? His queen has moved so many times. My queen hasn't moved once. My position's a lot stronger because his queen has been under attack from all my pieces. And it continues to be. Early queen sorties. I mean, sometimes you'll see very strong players like grandmasters, you know, kind of having a laugh, moving their queen a bunch. Of course, a strong player can make it work, but know that you literally have to master the entire game of chess, have a very deep understanding of why you shouldn't do it to know, to be able to make it work at all. An actual 500 is not going to be able to just bring their queen out and have it make sense, or any remote sense at all. All right, well, after g6, I think the move knight g5 is extremely tempting because f7 and the queen are hit, and queen e6 is impossible, and queen d5 we can trade and take there. So knight g5 looks like it wins a lot of material. Apart from that, I'm looking at the move that, well, this was my last move, rook c1 to take on c4. I'm hitting the queen. Where can that queen go? And what do I have to follow up? Rook takes, I mean, the queen could go here, queen could go here. Queen here, and I'm not really seeing the next move, so I like the knight g5 idea. We'll see where he puts the queen. A lot of potential squares. Queen h4, queen f4 are both fairly decent. Queen d5 is maybe the move he might land on if he finds the best looking move, because it actually guards that pawn. But we do have some options there. Tough spot for my opponent, right? Knight g5. My opponent has every single one of their pawns, but they're missing a knight and they're missing a rook, so kind of in my favor. But I like how most of this game has showcased the power of the initiative. We have been operating with the initiative. Every move, we try to attack something. I mean, queen e5 is unfortunately probably the worst move. The worst safe looking move. It looks like it's safe in the center of the board, hitting a knight, but it's actually the worst one. And hey, again, credit to my opponent here. Another good looking move. You know, there's no way to save everything, but it is the closest looking thing. So I think queen d5 is good. Now in this situation, if I take and take on f7, that's great. You know, that's fantastic. What I'm going to do though is I'm probably at least going to consider what happens if bishop takes c4, because if bishop c4 and he trades queens, knight takes f7, knight c7 is mate. The only reason I would not consider something like this or this, like in between moves, is that it loses my knight. Losing the knight is unfortunately something we can't allow. So absolutely the best move will be queen takes queen. Knight takes f7 and knight takes h8. But believe me, I thought about it. You do want to think about stuff like that. I did not think about this move. I have to be fully transparent here. e6 escaped me. Well, my opponent has offered a draw. I may have to decline that one. As tight as this game looks, I may need to decline it. Now, if knight takes here, king e7, king e8, like, I'm gonna lose that knight. So I'm actually not too interested in that. I think I'm just gonna take here and bring my queen closer to the king. Maybe look for queen to c7. Take the draw while you still can. No, I'm pushing through. If I was off stream, I would have taken a draw, but I'm on stream. So obviously we can't be showing signs of weakness. All right, knight d5. Again, pretty good move. Stopping this for what that's worth. Queen to b8 check threatens this, and also I still have knight f7. So I'm just looking at queen b8. Is that worth it? Or just go straight away with knight to f7. And you know what? I think knight f7 is good enough. Keep things simple. Take the rook. I'm just gonna give a little bit of thought to bishop takes pawn and queen takes d7, but you know, taking our opponent's rook off the board gotta be a good thing. So we'll keep it simple here. Bishop g7. How do we continue our attack? I'm kind of looking at queen b8 here, hitting the d6 pawn. It also guards my knight, strangely. Knight f7 is playable because the bishop hangs, so my knight is not even trapped, which is important to remember. Lots of good moves, believe me. Like bishop takes. I'm up so much material here. Everything wins, but I'll just play a move that covers everything. Why the heck not? That looks like it's multitasking. Rook takes c4. I mean, yeah, I'm sure these moves are all winning. But my knight is hanging, so why not play a move to defend it? Why not? I'm also covertly threatening bishop takes on d6 or queen takes on d6. Yep, and I believe I am going to go for that. Let's take with the bishop check. I still have this bishop hanging, but if the king goes here, we're not going to take the bishop. We're going to deliver a mate. I had a feeling that might happen. Good game. GG. Right, knight b4, and to me, I love e4. I think it's definitely the move. Play in the center, and just not get caught up with kicking the knight, because you can do that whenever you want. So, c6, and here I'm well aware that c4 is not the best move on the board, but you know what it does do is it solidifies my center pawn and says, okay, you've still got a knight that still can't return to the action. This is not very easy to play. So I'm a big fan of c4. Other moves I just think are not that much better. I actually don't have a particular liking for this. I really don't. It might be one of the top ways to play here, but I don't like the idea of giving away the bishop. Yes, it is a very good way to play, but I don't think that yields much of an advantage, and you can always get outplayed by the bishop pair. It kind of goes back to my rule that I've always had. And the rule that I've always had is I would rather have something that my opponent doesn't have. I'd rather have something and you have nothing, rather than I have something and you have something worse. For example, I would rather be up a knight. I have a knight and you don't have a knight. I'm just up a clean knight. That means every single position in chess is going to be better for me because I have an extra knight. There are there are very few positions where having an extra knight is not better than having no knight, right? But if I have a rook and you have a bishop, or if I have a queen and you have a rook, there are lots of positions where the rook might be better than the queen. Of course, there are going to be way more where the queen is better than the rook. The queen is better than a rook. But let's say out of 100 positions, if I have an extra knight and you don't, I have a full clean extra knight compared to you. Very likely 100 of those positions that you might find in a game are going to be better for the side that has an extra knight. If I have a queen and you have a rook, maybe 85 of them are better for the queen, maybe 90. maybe even 95. But no matter what, there's a higher percentage of positions where the rook actually can outplay the queen. It's possible. So I think it's a really important concept. Here, this is what I'm saying. In this position, I feel like I have a lead in development. My opponent has a bad knight. I'd rather just get developed. I have something you don't have. As soon as I go like this, it's like, yeah, I have a lead in development. Well, maybe not anymore. Now you have the bishop pair and it kind of compensates for what I have. I'd rather not deal with, I have something and you have something. Which one is better? I'd rather just have something that you don't have. Then I know I'm better every single time. It's just a lot easier. So yeah, you have a bad knight and no development. Yeah, I'm just gonna gain more space and keep my pawn there. It's basically why I played c4. I mean, this move really walks into bishop d2. It also helps that we've already had a game exactly like this. Literally our first game in the speed run. So bishop d2 is an automatic move, and then a3 capitalizing on the pin, and just like that, I think we made the right decision with c4 because blunders just happened. Yeah, he needed to take my pawn there. But at this point, everything's fallen. Everything's fallen. Yeah, and he just, I guess, maybe forgot that his knight could take. Maybe he didn't see that. Maybe he didn't see that the knight was actually defending it. That's possible. Poor guy. I thought he played pretty well. I really did. He lasted, pretty long. It was like 23 moves. I think it's the longest game that we've had. He also used his time well. But you know what he didn't do? He didn't have an opening, a good opening at all. He should move something to take control of the center. Even knight f6 controls the center. Knight c6 just gets kicked around. So not a good opening. And then moving the queen out was a really poor decision. Move 4, moving the queen. No, big mistake. And he paid for it pretty much the entire game.